Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. We are here to talk about RFPA number 1250-18-VLN, otherwise known as the Communities of Opportunity Learning Community, RFA. My name is Kalayaan Domingo, and I'm a project manager with Communities of Opportunity, and I'm here today with Vicki Nakamichi, who is joining us from King County Procurement. We are going to kick off our Learning Community webinar today. Excuse me as I move the slides. With an introduction from King County Procurement, I'm going to then give a little bit of background around communities of opportunity. We're going to jump into the learning community concept and how we're envisioning this, and then go into the details of the RFA. After that, we'll have time for questions, which you can type into the text box. If you have any questions as I'm talking, go ahead and type those in, and we'll make sure to respond to them. So I'm going to have Vicki go ahead and share her part from King County Procurement.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending the pre-proposal conference webinar. I'm briefly going to go over just the housekeeping section 1 of the RFPA. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If we could ask everybody to mute their computer, and if they have a question to unmute. Can everybody see the slides? Maybe. They're all muted.
Yes. Yes, they can see the slides.
Okay. This webinar is part of a group of pre-proposal conferences. We had one on Tuesday at the Columbia City Library, and we are going to have another one at the Renton Library Friday morning, excuse me, from 10:30 to 12. The last day of questions is Monday, November 12th. As we've discovered after I put that in there, that November 12th is a holiday. So you have until the end of the day, Monday, November 12th, because nobody will be in the office. Any questions that you might have after this pre-proposal conference, please direct all questions to me. You can email them to me. You can also give me a call. You can also include the alternate buyer, which is Linda McKinley, although she will not be in the office next week. I ask that when you submit your proposal application no later than 2 p.m. on November 20th, that you either send it through UPS, FedEx, or hand deliver them. And I don't recommend that you send them through the U.S. Postal Service. They are delivered to our mail room, and they don't always get to our office in a timely manner, and we must have them in our office to the address and floor no later than 2 p.m. on November 20th. Otherwise, we will not accept them. If you haven't done so already, I would recommend signing into our online vendor registration and adding your name as a holder to this particular procurement. That guarantees that if there's any changes made to this solicitation, that you will be notified. It's not required, so you can still go in and check the website on a regular basis, which I recommend, to make sure that you don't miss any additional information. We have noticed that there are some inconsistencies in the RFPA document, which we will go over briefly, but they will be included in an addendum that we will be issuing next week. That addendum will include any information that comes out of our pre-proposal conferences, as well as questions and responses that are asked during those conferences and up until the point that we issue the addendum. An additional addendum will then be issued probably by the end of the week if we receive, or excuse me, the end of the following week once we've received all of the questions. If you have anything in your proposal that you deem as confidential, proprietary, or a business secret, please make sure to mark it. King County gets a lot of public disclosure requests, and this will give you an opportunity to protect that information. We give you 10 days to be able to protect that information. Like I said, if you have any questions after the pre-proposal conference, please make sure that you only send your questions to me. I'm going to turn it over to Kai now, and she's going to go over the scope of work.
Great. So before we start with our scope of work, I just want to make sure that everybody is familiar with communities of opportunity. So I have some slides, if you're able to see the slides, that help to identify our initiative and our strategies. So we strive to be a community-driven initiative. Our goal is to increase health, social, economic, and racial equity in King County. We believe that all people in King County should be able to thrive regardless of race and place. We use data to help us determine where our investments are prioritized. This data has shown that many of the communities facing the greatest burdens of disparities for health and well-being indicators are concentrated in South Seattle and South King County. So this is where we've concentrated much of our work. We have our 4 result areas. We believe for communities and individuals to really be able to thrive and reach their greatest potential, it will need us to be able to address these 4 interconnected areas: health, housing, economic opportunities, and community connections. And these are the indicators that we're currently using. These are the measurements that we've used to be able to map some of our data to see where we're at currently. And there'll be some of the indicators that we'll use moving forward to determine what improvements we've been able to make. So we have 3 main strategies with communities of opportunity. We started with our 3 original community partnerships. These are our place-based initiatives in the Rainier Valley, SeaTac Tequila, and White Center. We've also now expanded out to 6 additional sites that include place-based as well as cultural communities. We recognize that not all communities are rooted in place, and because of displacement, many of them have lost the places where they were concentrated and are dispersed throughout King County, as well as rural communities. We recognize that our communities that are outside of urban centers are facing many complex issues that we strive to support them to be able to address. We also realize that many of the disparities that our communities are facing are due to institutional, system, and policy decisions. And so we fund organizations to be able to work on addressing these root causes. This is our last strategy, which you're here today to learn about, which is our learning community. So we believe that in order to really do all of our work well, we need to be investing in the capacity of the communities, our organizations and leaders, as well as sharing and disseminating the information and the projects and great work that our community members are doing locally. And we want to be able to create spaces for deeper learning and understanding and networking and sharing amongst our partners. So that's exactly, this learning community is an opportunity for people to come together, to develop tools, to test models and strengthen relationships and networks. And so we really aim to bring forward the great work that our CO partners are doing and uplift those learnings and stories and strategies, as well as find opportunities to build together for long-term change. We have 2 components of our learning community. One that you're going to be learning about today, which is in this RFA, which are learning activities. We see our learning activities as capacity building activities, as well as our learning circles, which are topic specific areas connected to our result areas. And then we have our tools, which are going to be things like data and evaluation and communication supports that will really deepen the impact and amplify the work of our partners. And those tools are going to be accessed through a different set of activities, and so are not part of this current RFPA. So what do we mean when we talk about capacity building? So when we talk about capacity building, we're really thinking about what have we heard from our partners that they've shared really help them to reach the aims of COO. And so some of this is about building strong organizations, strong leadership, strategies for organizing or for policy and system change strategies. And racial equity is a core component of our work. So we might also be looking at building capacity for our organizations and strategies and projects to really integrate racial equity into the work they're doing. The way that these activities get implemented will look differently depending on what the needs are and who the audience is. So they might include things like workshops, clinics, convenings, roundtables, or even independent coaching and mentoring. So the next piece is the learning circles. We envision these, and we're just testing this idea. This is our first time we've done this, so we're really looking for consultants to come in and help us to co-design, as well as the participants who are in the learning circles to co-design as they're experiencing. And so we're going to have what we're envisioning, a cohort model over a period of 6 to 8 months, where the participants are engaged in learning and designing learning and activities around a specific topic area. And out of that, we'll be developing a set of recommendations for proposed policy, system, and infrastructure supports, recommendations for ongoing learning in the topic area, as well as learnings for us to continue this concept of our learning circles. So we'll be basing the experiences from these current participants into what the learning circles will look like after this first test. So the details of our RFA, I just want to point out that we did issue this RFA back in August, and we needed to pull it back and work on it a little bit more and reissue it through King County Procurement. If you had seen the previous iteration, you'll notice that there are going to be some changes. So as I'm talking about the RFA, I'm going to be identifying what some of those changes were. So we have one capacity building consultant that is in this RFPA. We also have one administrator position. This previously was called an event planner administrator, and we are simplifying the language to just be an administrator, and we will have 4 learning circle leads. Applicants may apply for multiple positions, but you will need to submit an application for each one separately. So with this work, we envision that the consultants will be joining our team as an extension of our team, helping us to design. I really see that we're all working collaboratively, looking for a different kind of consultant relationship where you're working deeply with each other and with COO staff. And I just want to point out in this diagram, you'll see that it still says event planner / administrator. It currently now is just the administrator. And this is just to highlight that we're all working together. There will be times when learning circle leads may just work on their own. There might be time when we're all coming together and working collectively. I am going to be the lead working on this project, so I'll be working deeply with all of the consultants. The first capacity building consultant is for 2 years, the time period. It is $160,000 for staff time, and then there's an additional $600,000 for implementation activities for a total of $760,000 over 2 years. This consultant will be in charge of doing a written assessment of CEO capacity, skills, and needs. We as COO staff have been collecting some of this information, so we have some of this to already give to the consultant. The consultant will be creating a strategy to actually use the $600,000 budget to create activities to address the needs of our partners, and some of these activities will be for the broader community as well. We plan on having a large convening, like a summit or something like that, and so this capacity consultant will be in charge of planning that summit. We also we'll be looking for some specific recommendations for COO of how can we continue to do this capacity building work. There will be a slate of 40 to 50 activities per year that are going to be expected. There were some questions in the last information session around what constitutes an activity. Fleshed out because this is new. We're not quite sure what everything is going to look like. The example that somebody brought up was around coaching. And does one coaching session equal one activity? We said it could be that there's multiple coaching activities, but we would look at the scope of work. So for example, if there was coaching connected to one organization around budget development, but there was 3 coaching sessions, that would probably be one activity. And then if they wanted coaching for another scope of work, say they wanted to look at hiring practices, that would be another activity. We just need to have some numbers in here to help to direct how much work will go out, but this will be built together with COO staff. We'll have a written compilation at the end of key learnings, as well as recommendations for us moving forward. The consultant will be, in order to meet those deliverables, we expect the consultant will compile, sort, and prioritize capacity building needs, develop learning objectives for capacity building activities, identify, select, contract, and coordinate with TA providers. They will also be paying the TA providers, and they'll be working with the administrator on promotion, logistics, and registration for qualifying events. We don't imagine that this capacity building consultant will be doing the work themselves, all of this themselves, all $600,000. We imagine that there's going to be a network of subcontractors that will be supporting this work. The administrator position is one position, up to $80,000 for compensation. Sorry, that would have been a lot. And this is a cost reimbursable contract. So you'll notice that there's no actual deliverables. This is also a 2-year contract anticipated to start in March of 2019. Because we don't have a lot of staff time on this project, this administrator is really there to help us build out the systems of our learning community, provide consistency and support to all of the different components. So there's planning and logistical support for the larger activities that the Learning Circle leads might be developing with their participants, larger capacity building activities, including the COO Summit. They would develop and provide templates for contracting and develop and maintain systems connected to registration, outreach and marketing, and planning, and then as well developing the system to document and evaluate our activities. So the Learning Circle leads, there will be 4 positions because there's 4 circles that we intend on holding. Each of the Learning Circle leads will have $80,000 for compensation for staff time and $40,000 for activity implementation for a total of $120,000. The time period for this contract is a little bit shorter than the other 2 positions. This one is only 13 months. We want to really test and learn from this, so that's why it's shorter. And then we are going to have 4 topics: community ownership, environmental justice, community development and real estate, and healthy communities. So the deliverables would be to hold an active learning circle that meets at least 8 to 10 times over a period of 6 to 8 months, a written assessment of learning circle members' needs to propose policy, system, or infrastructure supports, recommendations for ongoing learning and growth in the topic area, delivery of a foundational curriculum. These are going to be the concept, the basic concept areas that all participants should have an understanding of in order to be able to engage in learning and conversation connected to the topic. Delivery of events and our activities. So we imagine there's going to be some larger community-wide activities that will come out of these learning circles. A written compilation of the findings, and then recommendations to modify the learning circles. So moving forward, based upon the learning circle lead as well as the participants, what do you imagine that these learning circles could look like? So the activities would be to develop the vision and membership, develop the foundational curriculum, conduct the actual learning circle, identify and coordinate with participate as subject matter experts, support the planning and execution of community-wide events, document learnings, and develop recommendations for learning circles. So all of the positions have some additional requirements because we really envision that the participant or the consultants are working together as a team. We'll have a one-day workshop to build the learning community team that will be grounded in the principles of COO and help us to determine how we want to be working with each other during this time period. There will be evaluation activities that will be associated with the learning community, and then just to clarify that all work products that are developed will be property of King County. So this is the submission requirements, and this is one area where I want to pay special attention because the way that we've written the RFA is that it's a little bit contradictory. So you'll notice on page 2 in your RFPA, there is a paragraph that's titled Proposal/Application. And here we give a couple of sentences identifying what materials are going to be submitted to us. And then we have at the back of the RFPA, pages 18 and 19, we have a checklist. We recognize that those two areas do not quite line up. And so we're going to be going through today what is actually going to be required. And then I'm going to be writing up the actual requirements, and it's going to be in the addendum that Vicki said will be posted next week. So I apologize in advance if this is confusing, and we will make sure that we have a clear way to be able to describe what the requirements truly are. So if you go to page 13 in the RFPA, you will see that we have our criteria. This is the criteria is basically the narrative. And so these are the questions that each applicant will be addressing in your 5-page narrative. You want to make special attention to the points and notice that they're scored differently. And each of the components has some specific questions around your approach to the project, the prior work that you've done to address racial equity, and experiences with regions within the COO priority areas. So these questions will be addressed in a 5-page narrative, or up to 5-page, using 1-inch margins with 12-point font, and all of the pages should be numbered. So that's the narrative component. There's a couple other in the criteria, you'll see there's some other requirements. Towards the end, you'll see that all proposers/applicants shall include the following attachments: a project budget for the lead, explaining how you'll use the staff time, a budget narrative, which will describe in words like maybe what the numbers in your budget don't describe. So if there's you anticipate 5 hours for doing outreach, and that's staff time, and maybe it's a staff member who speaks a specific language, you'll just want to describe that line with some words that help us to understand what this staff person is doing, what the role is, what the importance of it is, just to help us have a little bit more information about how you're thinking through your budget. We also are asking for a CV or a resume of the project lead, and then a letter of recommendation from a community-based organization. And this question came up at our information session of, does it have to be a COO partner? And what we're looking for in the community-based organization recommendation is that we want to know what the relationship was between you and this organization, that they would support you in this role. But we are really focused on organizations that are in our CO areas. So if you have an organization that is deeply rooted in one of our CO areas, can speak to one of the topic areas or result areas, and can really speak to the racial equity lens that you bring, those would all be things that we would be looking for, or why we would look for a recommendation. So those are the things that are in the criteria. There's a couple of other things that we have that are just additional that we want you to include or that are needed in your proposal packet. A copy of the entire RFA, pages 1 through 20, needs to be submitted, and there's a signature section on the first page of the RFA. So if you look at the first page of your RFA, you'll notice at the bottom you can fill in your company name, address, signature, and you'll want to submit this whole packet with the front page filled out. We also have a cover letter, which is attachment A, and that is not currently in our packet, and we will put that in the addendum. The cover letter is just, you'll check a box of which position you're applying for. So I don't know if I can show you this. Oh, I don't know if you can really see it. Okay, so you'll see that there's some check boxes. Those are all our positions. And then there's a matrix there where you can fill in your organization. That's going to be your cover letter, just so we know which position you're applying for. Yes, so you'll be submitting that. And then there is attachment B, which is the SCS submission form, which Vicki will talk about in just a moment. Again, applications must be received by King County Procurement no later than 2 p.m. on November 20th. We are unable to look and score at anything that is received after that time. Eligibility, individuals, organizations, or teams can apply. But this contract will be awarded to one entity. And I'm going to have Vicki just talk real briefly about the attachment B, which is the small contractors and suppliers.
So the small contractor supplier form would be included in your proposal if you are have been registered and certified as a small contractor and supplier through our business development and contract compliance department. There is a phone number in the RFP, 206-477-9734, that if you feel that you may meet the criteria that you can be a certified SCS firm, that they have an expedited process that you can fill out their application, and they will go through the application process. And if you are either a certified firm or you partner with a certified firm, make sure that you provide this form in your proposal, because you will get those evaluation points in the in all of the evaluation criteria for each category. If you have the link apparently in the solicitation does not work, so I would suggest that you call the phone number, and we will be including the corrected link in our addendum for you. If you have any questions regarding this requirement, you can give me a call. Otherwise, contact BDCC, Business Development Contract Compliance, and they can provide all the information that you need on certification.
And a clarifying point about this that was asked in our information session, this is only for businesses and not for nonprofit organizations. So the contract requirements, please read the terms and conditions. There's an example of a sample services contract where the RFA is located. So please make sure to go ahead and read that and be clear about what the contract may look like. If you have questions about the terms and conditions, please go ahead and contact Vicki if there's anything specific that you see on there that you'd like to have more information about. So our timeline is, today is November 1st. We have until the close of business day on November 12th to be able to ask questions. We're going to be publishing the addendum next week, and that will include the clarifications on the proposal requirements. There will be the link that Vicki just named. We're going to add in the cover letter, or the cover page, which is attachment A. And then I also want to point out, I'm sorry, we had another mistake, that is the scope of work for the Learning Circle leads. The activities were only partially there. We were missing the activities. So for the Learning Circle leads, you'll notice that the activities just say orientation and planning for 2 to 3 months. And then we have the conduct a Learning Circle activities, and that would be for 6 to 8 months. And then the preparation of recommendations for the ends of the Learning Circles, and that would be 2 to 3 months. We will make sure that the complete activities will be in the addendum so you can have a better sense of what we're expecting for the Learning Circle leads. Our responses are going to be due again November 20th before 2 p.m. The proposals, once we receive them, they'll be reviewed and rated. COO uses review groups of individuals that are coming from community organizations, primarily organizations associated in our COO priority areas, or those that have subject matter expertise in our result areas, as well as racial equity. And that those are the people who are compile our review panels. We have a few staff members, both Seattle Foundation and King County staff. I forgot to say this in the beginning. We're a joint initiative with Seattle Foundation, so their staff participates both in the review, as well as some staff will be participating as staff members in the learning community work. We anticipate that they'll be reviewed by mid-December, and that we'll be able to contact consultants or organizations for interviews in late December, with the interviews taking place late December through early January. We recognize that this is not a convenient time for many places. Many organizations are closed those last 2 weeks of December, or people are out of town, and so we want to be able to extend that into early January. So we'll work with you on coordinating an interview. And then the COO governance team, who is made up of community members as well as a King County representative and Seattle Foundation, as well as some of our philanthropic partners, that they have the final recommendation for our all of our processes. And so we would present our recommendations to the governance group, and they would go ahead and vote on those, and that occurs in late January. So we anticipate that applicants will be notified of their selection late January, ideally January 21st. Contracting will take place in February, with a hopeful start date for everybody in March of 2019. So just a reminder, again, the application, we want to make sure the application package is complete. You will need to turn in one original narrative and all the attachments and additional information for your proposal, as well as the same information on 2 flash drives for a copy of 3 total copies. On your flash drive, make sure to write your name and your organization. And then there is a bid identification label, which is page 20 of your RFA. You'll see that here. And you'll want to attach that to the outside of your envelope so that when procurement receives it, they know what you're applying for and when it should be opened. So just a few reminders again, please check the addendum. It will be posted next week. There's a lot of information in there that we did not have in the first version. We apologize, and we hope to clarify everything. And then again, all submissions must be received by 2 p.m. on November 20th. Here is the information for Vicky Nakamichi, who is the buyer for this RFPA. If you have questions, they need to go directly to Vicky, and you can CC Linda as well. Although I know many people directly because of our King County RFPA rules, please do not reach out to me directly, but reach out to Vicky and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. This webinar will be posted online. We will be posting our slides online as well. And if you have questions about communities of opportunity, you can visit our website to learn more information about communities of opportunity. So now is the time that if you have questions, to go ahead and type them into the box. We will be opening up the phone line. If anybody has any questions, we'll let you know when we're going to unmute. So if you have questions, please go ahead and type them in. We did have an information session the other day, so a few questions came up. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat some of those questions and what the answers were. So one question was about the resume. If you have multiple people working on your team, should we just submit one resume or multiple resumes? If it really is a truly team collaboration, you can submit all resumes. If there really is one person that's kicking this off and leading, you can submit their resume. We're just looking to see, is there expertise around the topic areas that you're applying for? We had another question that came in around just some changes that we had made around the administrator position. Previously, the administrator position was paying for the capacity building consultant subcontractors. That no longer is happening in this RFA. So the administrator is purely building systems and providing logistical and planning support, not making payments. Okay, I have one question here, and I'm going to read it out loud for those on the phone. How many partner organizations will the capacity building consultant be working with and providing activities to? That is a great question. We have probably almost 200 partner organizations in our network right now. And that's because many of our funded partners are made up of partnerships. So there's multiple organizations working together on one project, or they are even coalitions. So there could be as wide of a range as 200. We have far less contracts, but I do imagine that kind of in our core, relationships, we're probably working with up to 70 organizations. That's not quite probably so helpful, but we do have a good sense because we've done some learning already about what are some of the activities and the needs that are coming up from our partner organizations. We also, as project managers, work deeply with our funded organizations, so we already have some ideas about what kinds of,
Website.
It's on the, is it wrong? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I had a note that I was unclear about. But we do have a wide net of partners. So I just want to let everybody on the phone know what our website is. It's www.coopartnerships, partnerships.org. So the question about how many activities, I would start probably with just our core partners, which is probably that 70 where we have contracts with. And then as we get in deeper, we can start actually thinking about how to expand some of those activities.